Hey class, my name is Julie Larson, and my case study is titled Failed Attempts in STEM Careers. It's a reflection of a woman pursuing careers in STEM field. So from an early age, I was always interested in science. When I was little, I wanted to be a veterinarian and perform surgeries on animals to save them. I always had a love for animals and science and investigating things, finding out how things work, being creative. Just was really always interested in, playing with science kits, and my parents were always extremely supportive of this and never gave me a feeling that I couldn't do anything like that, specifically because I was a woman, and they were just always very supportive of that. So I excelled in science classes, and most of my best memories are from biology or chemistry, classes like that. So I remember making yogurt in middle school biology with live cultures and dissecting animals like squids and sharks and just being very, very interested in that. So I loved learning about scientific processes, history, and how we could use science to improve the world we live in for both people and the environment. Specifically, I was interested in infectious diseases and wanted to pursue a career researching cures and treatments for infectious diseases. My educational background, I attended a public school growing up, but I was always an above average student. I made good grades, loved school, loved learning. I did not qualify for any gifted or advanced classes when I was in primary or secondary schooling, but I did pursue dual enrollment when I was in high school. Which allowed me to get a lot of my core courses under my belt before I went to college. So if you're not familiar with dual enrollment, it is a program that provides students at eligible high schools with the ability to take college level courses and earn credits both toward high school and college for their graduation. So when I graduated, I entered as a sophomore in college, which was pretty cool. And I had a lot of just the core courses out of the way, so I was ready to get a head start on my major. So I graduated high school, I had a great GPA, scored really high on my SAT and ACT scores, and was really excited about pursuing my degree. So the critical event for me that I was most impacted by the diversity and equity was when I attended college. So in 2016, I was accepted into the COSAM department. It's College of Science and Mathematics at Auburn University, and I pursued biomedical sciences based on feedback that my advisors gave me on what degree would be best for me if I wanted to pursue research in infectious diseases. So it wasn't until I entered my post-secondary education that I realized how difficult it was for women in science. I'd never really had an idea of how tough it would be. My parents really never gave me any limitations when I was growing up about, women can't do this or women shouldn't be in any STEM fields or anything like that. So I didn't experience any of that until I went to college. So despite the adversity, I joined several organizations and really dove into my biomedical sciences major. I was determined to just be successful. It's what I wanted to do. So I graduated and I obtained my bachelor's of science in biomedical sciences. But after that, I really struggled to find work that related to my major and that was what I wanted to do. And it's been 9 years now since I graduated with my undergrad, and I wanted to do this case study to just show the challenges that women in science experience when they go to look for careers after their undergraduate degrees are done. So there is quite a gender gap in women in science. I put some statistics here. So women account for the minority of the world's research. So about less than 30% of the world's researchers are women. And speaking globally, women are the minority in STEM fields. So they're less likely to enter and more likely to leave their STEM careers. And a lot of this results from just the gender bias. So there's things that are typically experienced are isolation, hostile male-dominant environments, lack of support, ineffective feedback. And I obtained this data from the UNESCO Institute for Statistics. But even when women do pursue STEM careers, they still make quite a bit less than men. So in the US alone, there is, again, a minority of STEM workers, and women who earn STEM degrees are fewer than men, and even fewer women of color actually earn STEM degrees. So the National Center of Education Statistics, this is 2014 to 2019, so African American women make up 2.9%, Latinas 3.6%, Asian women 4.8%. And in these STEM careers, men are still compensated better than women, even in high-paying STEM jobs. So that the STEM field still remains predominantly male. So there is much research that shows that fewer females are in STEM because of discrimination against women. A lot of history shows that there were many great female scientists, but a lot of them may never be known because they published their work anonymously or under male pseudonyms. But there is still, you can still find great history on pioneering female scientists in the past, and mathematicians as well. So I did want to highlight some research from David Lubinsky and Camilla Benbow. So they did some research on students taking SAT and ACT scores, and just very successful high scores. They focused on that, and although women were a significant group of these high scoring populations, almost none of them went into science, mathematics, or technology. Most of them did pursue law or medicine. So while medicine is a field of STEM, it's not particularly the one that I am focused on. But although they scored really high, they did not pursue these degrees. And they found that high scores on visual thinking tests are far more predictive of successful science careers. And they did find that women generally do not score as high as men on these visual thinking tests. And so when we look at what a visual thinking test is, I posted an example here. So this particular image, tests like this, women generally do not do as well as men. So can these objects be rotated to fit perfectly into one another? So in looking back on Torrance's non-test ID work, I really thought, like, am I creative? Was I creative? So based on his research, I did consider myself a great candidate for STEM work and pursuing a STEM career. So I was always asking questions, curious. I wanted to find unusual solutions to problems. But I generally considered myself a creative individual growing up and in my college career. But despite my feelings of my own creativity, there was a pretty big roadblock that limited me. So there is quite a bit of creativity bias in the workplace. So overall research shows that women may be less creative than men, and they are perceived as such. And creativity, especially in STEM careers, is extremely important. So there is a general bias of women's creativity in general, so that makes it even more difficult for them to pursue STEM careers when they're considered less creative than men. So despite having my degree in biomedical sciences from a reputable university, I struggled for over a year to find a job doing what I wanted to do and within the field that I studied. So was it my gender? Was it, a creativity bias that existed? Was it the job market? It could have been that in 2010. It was still coming back from the recession. So I struggled to determine the exact pinpoint, but I do believe that, it was more difficult because of my gender. So was did I have the skills I needed? Was I prepared? Possibly I was threatened by the stereotypes of women in science and the implicit bias. So there has been improvement since I've graduated. And as we bridge the gender gaps for women in science, I think we'll see an improvement in the number of women in the STEM careers. But I think we also still have a long way to go to remove the stigmas that women face when pursuing STEM degrees and careers.